Simpson Bay, an area born of necessity, shrouded in history and in time became an entity of its own, as it has always been. From the geographical formation of St. Martin, Simpson Bay was a sort of embankment adjacent to the lagoon, sandwiched between two waters. One is the sea, the other the lagoon. This physical description has marked Simpson Bay Village from the inception of its existence. Caught between two worlds, the old and the new, the quaint and the modern, Simpson Bay is a study in contrast and shrouded in mystery from the beginning and has remained as such. It is believed that the village was established by mainly seafarers of Northern European descent and Scandinavians, the Swedes, Danishes, and even Brits via the island of Anguilla and St. Barts. They live mostly apart from the rest of the island, fished the surrounding waters, and communed like any other village. But this is not all, for to simplify the way of life would portray the people of Simpson Bay in an unflattering light. In this government's information's documentary on the village of Simpson Bay, we will come to see and hear from the people themselves, many of whom grew up in the quaint village and can still remember the good old days. They tell intimate stories, recall precious moments, and share their love with what we know as Simpson Bay.
And there they lived by fishing. That was the main industry in those days. The population in the beginning consists of 112 inhabitants in Simpson Bay. Yeah? And it was very secluded here on the island. You had to pass the bridge. You could not come by car. There was a boat by Mary Williams in the corner that pulled the people from head of the pond to the bridge at Simpson Bay, where the old church, they used to land there, the nuns and the priests, and then keep Holy Mass and school there.
When the boat by the name of the Harris was destroyed outside Simpson Bay, it left from Guadeloupe, went to Statia to take up 2 nuns and a priest. That happened in 1924, to bring them to St. Martin. On their way, there was, that's why before people never had names, never used to say hurricanes, they used to say gales. That is why the Harris Gale was named, because the boat was named Harris. But the men from Simpson Bay nearly gave up their lives to go and save those people. Nothing was lost. Just it was loaded with paint and barrels of rum and butter and whatnot coming from Guadeloupe, but then had to go to Statia. The wreckage of that Harris came in at Simpson Bay at White Sands, where the gated project is now built. The gated project, what had to be built at Emilio Estate. That's what I'm talking about. And when my mother and other old people from Simpson Bay, when they were girls, they used to go there and take up the remains, the timber on the decking, which was oak, and bring home for their mother to cook. In those days, they probably only had 2-3 coal pots, but they used to cook on 3 rocks. That's what used to happen. And that food was better than the food that they get now.
They had some old fishermen, but they're all gone. My father used to fish. He got uncles who used to fish. But I think only 2 uncles left. The one lives in Phillipsburg, the other one in Simpson Bay. Each of them had a net, a seine. And they used to go, most of the fellas go with them. They go in 2 boats and haul this net, sell their fish.
Simpson Bay is one of the 8 districts of St. Martin on the Dutch side. And every district has its uniqueness. In this case, Simpson Bay. Simpson Bay was a village within a district. Because then you have Beacon Hill, you have Westcott's, you have Williams. Those were all little villages within a district. Just like the district of Phillipsburg has its uniqueness. Lower Princess Quarter, Upper Princess Quarter. All of the 8 districts has its uniqueness. In this case, Simpson Bay. As all of us know that Simpson Bay, a big part of the village in Simpson Bay were fishermen. There were also boat builders. There were also sailors. And now I'm talking about between 1830 and 1860, when there became a change. Simpson Bay never had no plantation, neither lowlands, neither Phillipsburg.
As memories go, Simpson Bay was also a place where memories are remembered by those who can and adored by those who live there. For childhood, as idyllic as it may have been, garners emotional feelings that are surfaced whenever the topic arises. Here some residents talks about the village as it were.
Simply fishing. The fishermen used to get up, they had no motors in those days. Got up and around, let's say, 3 in the morning when they had to go past St. Bart's up west of Dog Island. And they would reach back around 12 that day. If the wind was right. If not, they would reach back 3 in the afternoon. We never had turkey for our Christmas. Do you know what it was?
No, tell me.
Fish, big fish like cremoles, what we call mullets. Every Christmas season they used to come up here at Snoopy's Island and the men used to go with their true net. And whatever the caught, they used to share them up. They used to hang them on the line. And of course they had their guavaberry buried from the year before. The guavaberry, that year they never drank it. They drank it from before, then it's better. And sweet potatoes, my mother used to bake in the oven, outside oven. That was our Christmas dinner. For years, we never knew anything about turkey and like that.
My childhood memories were the way we went to school. We were at the church, was a building for church and school, and it still stands there. The old building still stands there. And we had the opportunity of having a car. Number 44 was the number plate, and Edgar Peterson had the second car in the village. There were, at those days, there were, I think, 5 little grocery stores in Simpson Bay. Edgar Peterson and my father was neighbors with each other in the stores. So they had the 2 cars, and my father used to take us to school in Phillipsburg and not in Simpson Bay. We only came in Simpson Bay just after the war. We spent a short time there, but we continue our education in St. Joseph's School in Phillipsburg. Those are the days sometimes to avoid going to First Friday Holy Mass in town. We went by bicycle instead of with Polly Bell bus. We went by bicycle, my brother and myself, over the hill.
Well, this feature is not only remarkable for Simpson Bay, it's remarkable for the whole island of St. Martin. This is one of the largest water cisterns that we have on the island. This cistern has a capacity of over 300,000 liters. It is a huge cistern, probably built in the late 19th century or early 20th century. The earliest cadastral record we have for it is 1919. But we do know from historical records that everyone would use this cistern because in Simpson Bay there is no fresh water. So you had to have a lot of water for the community and for all the boat people who would come. This was a major mooring area, particularly in the 19th century. And so they needed water for refueling on the ships as well too, for the water of the ships. But we even have records that people would take rowboats from Marigot and come across Simpson Bay Lagoon to get water from the cistern. It is a government system, it's government property, and so it was for the community. It is also one of our new monuments for St. Martin, and so therefore we're hoping to have it restored and fixed up and highlighted as showing not only the architectural features of cisterns, but also showing the importance of water in the early history of St. Martin.
The man that owns this piece of land here, now this fellow, his name was Joseph Pilsey. That's the man who built the cistern. When Rockefeller came here in 1916, he was told in the hotel in New York, the Waldorf Astoria, by people from Simpson Bay. One was my aunt Judith Vlon, Sarah Vlon, Dan Vlon, which was Barnard Vlon uncle, that Simpson Bay had a lot of trouble with getting water because they never had a system. He said, okay, because his office, Nelson Rockefeller office, was in, one of his offices was in Waldorf Astoria, 3271 42nd Street. That's the address. When he went to St. Thomas in 1916, he went to the Emancipation Day of the Virgin Islands when America bought the Virgin Islands from Denmark. He didn't leave from New York, come here, no. But he was there and St. Thomas close by, so he came here and he and his entourage and landed in Phillipsburg. Now to get Simpson Bay, now what the people in the hotel told him, to walk the old road, you know where the old road, the South Shore, walk where they're building that hotel, walk through there, walk through K Bay, where GB is, and walk down here, looking for this man by the name of George Peterson.
The lagoon, unlike the salt pond, was not during these earlier years the main staple of the Simpson Bay village as it is now. It was a place, a body of water that was not dominant but intricate.
All the fishermen used to fish in there, women fish inside the lagoon, but no stranger didn't go there to fish. All the Simpson old men, the father used to fish there, and his brothers fishing there. No other people.
They would appreciate, they would like the Simpson Bay village. They used to go there, fish. Some used to fish in the lagoon, some fish in the high seas for that. Sometimes when weather come, you worry about them. Because sometimes the boat do different things and things. Sometimes the boat left them, they got long ago, some get drowned and all. Yeah.
Fishing, that was the only income then, nothing else. And they made well, they did okay. And then when the Rockefellers put in that the system there, that helped out a lot. You know, the women in those days were hard. For instance, when the boat come in, they go out there and they haul in boat. They were very tough women, the Simpson Bay women. Wow. The Simpson Bay Lagoon was very rich and fish and what we call crawfish, small lobsters, very rich. Even at this moment, the same thing is there. Yeah, they can use that. That was the importance of the lagoon. It was not used for marina as we are using it at this time of the history of the island.
That gives us a lot of food. We were reared off of that lagoon. We were reared off of the lagoon. Sometimes, but they never used to fish with a line, they fished with a net. You know, they would pull the net from Lapa Lapa up to Island Water Wall, and then they would have about 3-4 boats of only grunts, and they would take out one boat and sell that, and next they'll take out another boat, but the pond really bred most of the children in Simpson Bay.
But Simpson Bay had to deal with much hurricanes as the rest of the island. For the winds of the devastating forces stop not at the boundaries of Philipsburg, but causes havoc throughout. In spite of the devastation of hurricanes, the Simpson Bay people lived on, and was a village no different than the others.
Hurricane Dana, we were sitting down here, and I tell them I don't want to go nowhere. And when then a wave come, and I had a girl walking with me. She was from a lady named Telly in the corner up there. And when she see the water come, so and went with it, she said, Miss Nina, yeah, gone. So,
the way the houses were built, all the old houses in the ground, under the floor, they are pillars, wooden pillars in the ground, yeah, cemented down. So it's very hard, and if you notice the houses that Mr. L.B. Scott built in St. Martin during Lewis's time remain undamaged. The same thing is here, that the people in Simpson Bay, the way they build their own home, that was strong. Yeah, and I give you an idea, all the houses in Simpson Bay in the beginning were 24 feet long. 2 rooms, okay, 2 rooms, that's all, 24 feet. And I remember the story of my grandfather. He brought from New York, he brought a shipment of lumber, and it was 26 feet long. So the maid remark tell him, no, he cannot do that. And he cut off 2 feet off the lumber to make it 24. So the old house there is 24 feet. Look at it, all the same style, and that helps a lot with the hurricane season.
The Simpson Bay village is intricately linked to its famous bridges. First, people used to be towed by boat to cross the inlet. Then a wooden bridge was built. Some years after, a concrete bridge, which still stands. Ultimately, a concrete paved road until there was no need for it, with the filling in of the area with the sand from the lagoon itself.
Well, what better way to begin understanding Simpson Bay than through its bridge? This bridge actually only was set up in the 20th century. Simpson Bay, long before that, was a connection to the mainland. A large hurricane in 1819 blew out part of the sand and opened it up and isolated Simpson Bay from the rest of the island. That's when, for generations, they had boats, rowboats that they would take across to carry people to Simpson Bay. But in 1933, Lieutenant Governor Mainers decided he wants to build a bridge. And he built a wooden post bridge that crossed that gap in the sand and then allowed people to go by vehicle into Simpson Bay. That bridge remained until 1950, when a much larger concrete bridge was built across, and there was a short period when both bridges were there together. Then they dismantled the wooden bridge, left the 1950 bridge, but what happened was, with other storms and with time passing, after they had finished the 1950 bridge, it began to silt up. So that by 1966, it was so silted they built a concrete road. So at this one location, we have found through archaeology the remains of the post of the 1933 bridge. We have the beautiful 1950 bridge, and we've also found the roadway from 1966. So at one spot, the entranceway into Simpson Bay, we have found 3 of the bridges that were, or ways of entering into Simpson Bay.
Life in Simpson Bay was tranquil. At this time, we interviewed some people who speak about different aspects of Simpson Bay life, school, church, religion, and even customs when someone from the community dies.
Some people, if one's sick, you see the whole Simpson Bay come. And you know what I used to appreciate too? When somebody dead, it used to be weeks and months before you hear anything, no TV playing. But today, they take you out the background, they got you there playing TVs and all kind of things. Then they used to have these white curtains and the houses, and today don't have all that no more. It's a different altogether.
That was tradition when someone died to put up white
but
curtains.
Yeah. And the house quiet, nobody keep music or nothing like that for a good while.
Simpson Bay was one of the 3 district that had the first public school for black, white, yellow, pink. And that school, that property that was rented to the colonial government in 1860, which we has documented, it's a notarial deed. It was rented by, the property belonged to the Roberts, Richard Roberts, and I think the other one was John Roberts. They were brothers, related to the Hollies, etc., etc.
Well, this home actually is a great example of the beautiful history of Simpson Bay itself. It is a simple residential type of structure, 2 doors on the seaside. Note the shingle covering on this building. That was very typical not only in Simpson Bay, but across St. Martin. The early buildings would have wooden planks, and then they would put wooden shingles to cover the walls. This was so that the water would run off the planks, because before you had tongue and groove planking, you had gaps, and they needed to use these shingles. So very many of our old historical buildings on St. Martin and in Simpson Bay have this shingling type of technique on the walls. This building, I believe, is even older, but the oldest records we have of this building is Mr. Albert Peterson in a cadastral record in 1910. But we do know that in 1819, like we talked about with the bridge, all but 3 houses were wiped out in Simpson Bay. I think that this could be a house from the 19th century, older than 1910, but our oldest records are 1910. Well, now, the history of religion for Simpson Bay is kind of interesting. In the early 1800s, there used to be a Methodist preacher that would come over from Anguilla to Coal Bay. That was the early religious groups, right? And Methodism was established in Coal Bay. 1829, they built a small chapel in Coal Bay. Then in 1846, they built the first Catholic chapel in Coal Bay. So all the Simpson Bay people would go to Coal Bay to go to church. But in 1872, the Roman Catholic chapel in Coal Bay burned down. So then in 1894, they built this. This is called the St. Patrice Gonzalez Chapel, built in 1894 here in Simpson Bay for the Catholic community of Simpson Bay. The original building had, remember Albert Peterson's house with the shingle walls? The original building actually had the same kind of shingling on the walls.
But the advent of the times was upon the village. There was the airport, surrounded by accounts of contributions by Simpson Bayers.
When Mr. Crafland, the engineer, was building the airport, I was helping as a little boy my uncle Arthur, Barbara Williams, Richard Peterson, Lewis Peterson, placing rocks in the sections. The more sections you finish, the better the pay was. So we would take the rocks from off the truck and take them to the location for the men to place them as quick as possible. As a boy, and that was a great thing for me to have the stones from Maho and the Mullet Bay area brought there and put down.
A lot. First, we didn't have no airport. My husband walk on the airport to fix with rocks and things, the rocks and that. Then to the little airport, and then they bring it again to come out bigger, and then now after that, they got it now in a big thing.
I would like to mention here the way the asphalt was put on the airport, the first airport covers that was made. The asphalt was brought in containers, and under the asphalt drum there was fire made of wood, yeah, to keep the asphalt liquidized. And the tank with the asphalt was pulled by bowls, 4 bowls from the front side. And sometimes the asphalt caught fire, so we had to cut the rope as quick as possible to save the lives of the animals. And sometimes the bowls would run into the sea. They got burnt and they would run in the sea from the airport road, building.
As you can see, Simpson Bay Village has grown from an embryonic, quaint fishing village to a big city urbanized metropolis with a diverse population.
It's still good. You know, everybody wants to live in Simpson Bay. Now it's known as the Golden Triangle.
Simpson Bay?
Yeah, I'm going to name it the Golden Triangle.
And why is that?
Huh?
Why is that?
Because everything is happening here.
Yes, I think that the development of Simpson Bay is not to I would say not to the benefit of Simpson Bay. We lost the beauty, the charm of the native lifestyle here in Simpson Bay. You notice that by the fishery, that's almost exhausted. We only had, I think, 3 or 4 left now at this moment. And all those big high-rise buildings you see in Simpson Bay, the economic development was too fast for Simpson Bay on this strip. Now, give you an idea, minimum of $1,000 is per square meter and $1,500 for Simpson Bay land on the beach stretch.
Draped in myth, it is said that the history of Simpson Bay began as a village of descendants of European seafarers. They were natural-born fishermen who traversed the world. Some would end up on St. Martin, settling on the southwestern coast along a lazy beach. Isolated from the rest of the island, they carved a niche for themselves that suited the hard-worn men of the sea. However, as time passed, Simpson Bay has developed from a quiet area nestled among the grape trees to a bustling district called by one of its own residents the Golden Triangle. Simpson Bay will manifest itself further in the future. Let's wait and see what is to come.